Bennett, the Abrams, all those guys, they're no longer there. They're no longer there. But Russell says, okay, if you keep saying, I'm the guy, but all you want to do is turn around and run the football and play defense. Well, we don't have that type of defense anymore, and I should be involved in the communication. Skip, I was watching the other night, and they had Tom Brady. Earlier, after he had won a couple of Super Bowls, he's in Coach Belichick's office, and he's coming down. He's like, well, you know what? If Ed Reed does this, if we run the flag here, and Ed Reed jets it there, we should have the guy on the backside does this because he's going to be wide open. And Coach Belichick said, you're saying this? Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll make a note of that. Russ is saying, I should get some of that, right? I've won a Super Bowl. I've been a top player in this league. And it seems every time I make a suggestion, it falls on deaf ears, and I want to know why. So that's a problem when your quarterback, the star of your football team, doesn't feel like his voice is being heard. He says, well, if you don't want to hear my voice, let me go somewhere where they will listen to my voice. They got a problem on their hands, Skip. And for Russ to take this kind of stance, Skip, Russ is very quiet, very reserved now. Since he's been married, he's posting more stuff on social media. I get that. He loves his wife, rightfully so. What's not to love about her? She's a great mom. She's a great entertainer. But for Russ to take this kind of stance, this kind of approach with his football career, Skip, I don't think anybody saw this coming. And Pete Carroll should tread very, very lightly when dealing with Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I agree. It seems like quarterback and head coach are on a collision course. And I was surprised to read in several stories last night that Pete Carroll has final say in this franchise. He has total control, even over John Schneider, the GM, that the buck stops on his desk, on Pete Carroll's desk. Wow. I didn't realize that, and that can be dangerous business, as you know, because you're wearing both hats, and maybe you don't see the forest for the trees. But I get you on the flashpoint moment at the end of that New England Super Bowl, obviously played in Arizona, and yet I defended the decision only because the track record of Marshawn Lynch through that year in the regular season was he had tried 4 times to ram it home from the 1-yard line, and he'd been stopped 3 out of 4. So they did put the ball in Russell's hands on the play of the game, and they threw or called what they thought was a very low-risk pass. And you know and I know Malcolm Butler made, I think, the greatest jump on the football by a defensive back I have ever seen on the goal line.
Yes.
And literally just tore it out of, what was his name, Ricardo Lockett's hands.
Lockett.
Yeah. But he's a big, strong, possession-type receiver, and Malcolm just snatched it from him. And it took me about 30 seconds to even realize what had happened. I couldn't even figure out how it happened. But I get you. I don't have a problem with the play call, but to your point, the locker room had a huge problem with it, so that became a Pete Carroll problem. and he solved it by getting rid of the problem because, to your point, one by one, gone. That was the Legion of Boom, one of the great defenses we see in the history of the league. And yet that Legion of Boom held a 24-14 lead going to the fourth quarter against Tom Brady, and he threw for 124 and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone to bring them back to victory. It took the greatest defensive play in the history of the Super Bowl to save the victory from the jaws of defeat, obviously, but it was the flashpoint moment for the undoing of that franchise, and yet the irony was Pete was trying to put Russell on the pedestal. And I do believe, in their heart of hearts, they wanted Russell to be the MVP of the game, not Marshawn Lynch. And Russell, obviously he had won the previous year's Super Bowl, and they had a chance and probably should have pulled off winning a second one. But if you look hard at Pete Carroll's track record as a head football coach, he's not good, he's great. And it's hard for me to believe he's lost his fastball because I just don't think he has. Shannon, if you look at the total impact of his career, just briefly, look at what he did. I know he took over Bill Parcells' Super Bowl team in New England, but he was pretty good. He went 27-21 in 3 years in New England, made the playoffs a couple times. Then he goes to USC, and he's just all-time great. And they go 97-19 in at USC, and they win 10 straight Pac-10 or Pac-12, I guess they were, championships. And then they won 2 straight national championships, as you know, at USC. And then if you look at the totality of his performance in Seattle, well, he's won the division made the playoffs 9 of 11 times. Well, that's great. How do you replace that? With Russell, he's won it 8 out of 9 times. He made the playoffs 8 out of 9 times. And they're 10-8 overall in the playoffs, 9-7 with Russ. Well, that's just greatness to me. That's so good. How do you replace that? And how do you argue out of the fact? Yeah, when you think of Russell last year, if you look at over the last 11 games, we talked about this, Russell was ordinary. He ranked 14th in Pro Football Focus rankings over the last 11th game. He was 14th ranked quarterback. He was 2nd in turnovers over the last 11 games to Drew Lock in Denver. He was 1st in getting sacked, and you're the first one to point out a lot of that is Russell's problem because he runs into a lot of sacks because he just holds the ball so long trying to throw the home run. Well, I don't know. I can't condemn Pete Carroll for that. So I edge more to his side on this, even though Russell is obviously the franchise quarterback and you're going nowhere without him. But it's hard for me to say.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I got it. But do you really think that Pete Carroll should be fired?
That's my point, Skip. No. I don't believe he should be fired, but Skip, he should heed what Russ is saying. It's kind of like Coach Belichick. Coach Belichick says, I'm in charge. I run the show. We know the buck stops on Coach Belichick's desk. All the grocery. If he's not shopping for the grocery, he's sending somebody out and he's looking at the receipt to make sure they got what he's told them to get on the purchase order. So Pete Carroll, I get it. You're a coach, very good coach. But if you look at the situations, what has he always had? He had Carson Palmer at USC. He had Matt Leinart. He had Drew Bledsoe in New England. He had Russell Wilson. So he's had great quarterback play. Pete Carroll is no dummy. If Pete Carroll thinks he's winning without great quarterback play and he can just coach him up, he's going to be sadly mistaken. And a lot of coaches believe that. A lot of coaches actually believe, Skip, it's them. Oh, it's my scheme. It's my system. No, it's the Jims and the Joes that play in your system that make your system go. Don't you ever think it's you.
I got it. There's one other comparison to Belichick that concerns me, and that's the nepotism problem that Belichick's got 2 of his sons working for him. Pete Carroll has had 2 of his sons on his staff. I think one just left for a new job, but one is still on the staff.
Yeah, I think he's in Arizona now.
Yeah, and reportedly, Russell Wilson was having issues with the 2 sons and their input into game plans. So that's hard to defend. I don't know the inner workings of the Seahawks.
To those guys. Oh, so Russell said, hold on, Pete. You listen to those guys give you input into a game plan, but when I say something, mine fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So you're gonna trust those guys? Okay. Well, I need to get somewhere where they'll listen to me. They'll hear what I have to say. I'm not saying they need to put everything that I say into a game plan, but they will at least listen to what I have to say. You're not hearing what I got to say. Okay, it's your team. Do it your way. I'm going to get somewhere where we can do it. We can kind of share.
All right. So all I know, bottom line is, if the relationship between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson has terminally soured, then we will take Russ in Dallas. We'll take him. We'll give you Dak for Russell. I bet you will take Russ.
He don't want to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
He's going to Vegas. Sierra already got a residency. She already got something at the Wynn or the Palm or somewhere where she's going to be doing nightly.
How do you know that?
So, I don't know that, but it sounds good. I'm trying to keep him away from the Cowboys.
Say, are you reporting some inside scoop here, Shannon? That does make a lot of sense, but I'm just
trying to keep him away from the Cowboys.
I understand. I've heard this from you before. Skip, I hear you, and maybe Russ has heard you as well. I'm switching gears. Has LaMelo already claimed the crown as the best